Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacy, and our first guest today is Steve Giuffre with Lair Realty Partners out of Dracut. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you very much, Bob.
So, Steve, you cover the Merrimack Valley and surrounding areas, correct?
Correct.
And you were telling me that you specialize in short sales in addition to working with regular buyers and sellers. Can you tell us a little bit about the new foreclosure prevention team at Lair?
Sure. So one of the things we're doing right now is we established this team to try to reach out to homeowners that are going through foreclosure issues from all different ends. Mm-hmm. One of the big things is, it would be a short sale most likely. Sometimes that's not the case. It could also turn out to be a traditional sale. Mm-hmm. But that's not all we're trying to focus on. Some homeowners that we are in talks with, they want to try to keep their property.
Right.
And they don't get a lot of the options that they need, or they don't hear a lot from other people that are reaching out to them about all these other options.
Right.
So one of the options they could do is a loan modification with their mortgage company. Mm-hmm. And we work with different attorneys that will reach out to their bank, mm-hmm. figure out what they need, and try to work with the homeowner to do a loan modification and complete the package.
And are the lenders still willing to do loan modifications? Because you just don't hear about it much anymore.
Yeah, there are a lot of the lenders that will do it. I want to say mostly some of the bigger banks. Mm-hmm. But there are some banks that are also local that will do loan modifications. And it's just the way that they can try to get most of their money back. And
right.
They want to,
Right. A lot of people don't realize the bank doesn't win on a foreclosure. It's so costly to do it.
Yeah.
Most times it's not covered even if there is some equity in the property.
Yeah, and a lot of times with the foreclosures, if it goes to auction, the auction price is going to be a lot lower than what they would get from whether they do a loan modification or even a short sale on the property.
Right.
The auction sale prices are usually a lot lower, and it will hurt the homeowner's credit a little bit more than it would on a short sale.
Right. What other options do homeowners have available to them?
Homeowners can also file for bankruptcy if they wanted to go mm-hmm. that route. Bankruptcies will help stop the foreclosure process, mm-hmm. And it gives them time to also work with the bank and find ways that they can try to get back on payment and restructure their mortgage. Right.
So the banks are, in short, they're still willing to work with people to keep them in the houses.
Correct.
All right. I assume they have to meet certain guidelines. You can't just call up and say, I can't make my payment anymore. Can you lower it?
Exactly, yeah. So, loan modification, there's a huge package they have to go through. Mm-hmm. They need to go over finances, see what's coming in, what they're spending, what utility costs are. And what will happen is they'll try to take some of that mortgage that's back owed, and they put it at the end of the loan. Mm-hmm. And then they restructure the payment sometimes over another 30 years or to even sometimes 48.
Oh, okay.
Depending on the bank and what their terms are, but they will go sometimes further out just to bring that mortgage payment wider mm-hmm. and the payments down.
Do they lower the interest rate too, or just extend the term?
Depends. Sometimes they'll look, if the interest rates are lower in general right now, they mm-hmm. may lower them to try to get them on track, but interest rates have been going back up. So
right. When they do lower them, it's not usually permanent, right? It's usually for a couple of years or something like that?
Yeah, it's for a couple of years just to kind of get them back on track and then go over it from there.
So if you do get a modification, you're eventually going to have to pay most, if not all, the money that you originally owed.
Yes. So mostly it's the modification. It'll add to the end of the loan what is back owed onto the property.
But it's better than losing the house.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Yep. And you get lower payments. So.
Oh, excellent. And then if loan modification is not an option, what are the next steps?
The next step, if a loan modification doesn't work, would be an option for bankruptcy, or they would go with a short sale or traditional sale if there's equity in the property. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we see with some of these foreclosures is 90% of the time there really isn't a lot of equity.
Right.
Because what's owed adds up, interest adds up, and they end up owing a lot more on the property than it's actually worth.
I see. So it's not that they were upside down from the start. It's just all of the principal and interest they haven't paid basically eats up all their equity.
Correct.
I see. All right. I was wondering how you could still end up having short sales with the way prices keep increasing year to year, but that actually makes a lot more sense. I actually just saw one recently where a seller was still in their home. They hadn't made a payment on principal, interest, taxes, or insurance, or any of the town, like water and sewer bills. Yep. and I think the total of all that stuff came out to like $110,000 that they owed in back payments.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, there's people that we've talked to that they haven't paid a mortgage in 2 to 3 years. Some of them don't even live in the homes anymore.
Right.
And they believe that, when they move out, sometimes they think that they no longer have ownership in the property once they move out and get the first letter.
Right.
They think now the bank owns it, and unfortunately that's not the case. The homeowner's still in control. They still own the property until they sell it or the bank sells it.
Yeah, or until the bank at least takes possession of it legally, right?
Yep.
What about for people that are facing foreclosure? What other options do they have? Or you're just looking at straight out selling it otherwise?
Otherwise, it would be straight out selling it. If they don't go for a loan modification, or they don't get approved for a loan modification, or they don't choose not to do the bankruptcy route, that would be to sell the property.
Okay. And are the banks willing to negotiate at all as far as, let's say you're doing a short sale? Do these people walk away with any equity at all, or?
On a short sale, no.
So there's no incentive like $10,000 to hand us the keys instead of going through the whole foreclosure process, or?
Not really. It's hard to say, too, with certain banks. Some banks, you might be able to get a little something towards a relocation fee, but that's very rare and uncommon nowadays.
Yeah.
But, when you sell the property as opposed to letting the bank foreclose on you, it is going to help it doesn't help your credit score 100%, but it does take less of an impact on your credit score than if you were to foreclose.
Do you still have to stop paying the current mortgage to get them to consider doing a short sale?
No, I mean, you can do a short sale if you owe more on the property than what the property's worth. You can do a short sale.
Okay, or you can at least try.
Or try, yeah. And, to the bank, if that they're going to look at that as, all right, well, we need to, take the short sale, or we're not going to get any more money and lose out.
Because back a few years ago, when it was a lot more prevalent, the most banks would tell you, especially the big ones, don't even bother applying for a short sale until you're 90 days down.
Oh yeah.
Or at least 30. A lot of them said if you don't stop making the payments, we'll assume you can keep making the payments.
Yeah, I haven't ran into any of that yet.
Well, that's good, because the downside of that is if you go even 1 times 30, as far as 30 days late on the mortgage, even if you sell it short, it's looked at the same as a foreclosure if you're late at the time of the sale.
Yep.
So it certainly doesn't help you when it's time to buy another house. You got to wait a lot longer.
Yeah, and we've been told, seeing now that people that do a short sale on a property can usually buy again within 2 to 3 years, as opposed to foreclosures that could take up to 7 to 9 years before they allow you to buy again.
Okay.
So that does help a little bit with your credit there.
Yes, it does. What about bankruptcy? What are the options there? You touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with all the bankruptcy options at this point. I know Chapter 13, people that file for that, it does allow them, it will stop the foreclosure process. Banks can't foreclose on somebody when they are in a bankruptcy.
Okay.
I know for definitely that it's Chapter 13. But, so once they're in that, then they can start restructuring from there and working with the bank on trying to get their mortgage loan, modified again.
Right.
Or
so maybe it's like a second step if the modification doesn't happen the first time. Bankruptcy is kind of the next step.
Yeah, it's a good way to kind of stop the process, while they're trying to get things situated again and work on paying it back.
Interesting. What do you find is causing short sales these days? Is it people just upside down on the house, or is it something else?
Upside down, but a lot of days it's, divorce.
Really?
Deaths in the family. There's all different types of life instances right now that are happening that causes a short sale to happen.
Gotcha.
A couple gets divorced, one moves out, one stays, but they just lost half the income and they can't afford to pay for the property anymore.
Right.
That's been a big one. Sometimes an illness in the family, medical bills. They start paying the medical bills and they stop paying the mortgage. So a lot of people ask that question is there still short sales out there with the market the way it is? And the answer is yes. And there's always going to be short sales. I mean, people aren't stopping getting divorced. People aren't stopping dying. So there's always going to be some type of.
And we've seen that a lot too in divorce situations where it's a bitter separation process and neither one of them wants to pay any of the bills. So everything just kind of
Yep, exactly.
falls
and
apart.
Sometimes too, it's both of them, both couples, both half move out. And they get
Right.
divorced. One moves out, the other one moves out, and they just leave it to the house sitting there, thinking that the bank's just going to take it.
Right.
And it is a process. It does take a long time. Sometimes in some cases, I've talked to people that haven't lived in their house for 4 years, and they're just getting a petition to foreclose now.
Right.
And unfortunately, during that time frame that you're not living in the house, if anything was to happen inside the house, with somebody falling or someone breaks in, the homeowner will be liable for that, not the bank.
Wow.
The bank does have insurance on if the house was to blow up. That would be covered under the bank's insurance. But anything inside, if someone falls on or even falls on the property outside, personal liability is all on the homeowner.
Right. There's probably something else worth mentioning too, because I think there's some misconceptions out there. Some people think, well, why am I going to go through the hassle to sell my house? I'll just let the bank sell it for me and I'll get my money.
Yep.
A lot of people don't realize if that happens, you're likely going to get zero.
Yes, most likely, and the bank's going to get a lot less money at an auction for the property than if you were to either try to traditionally sell it if there was equity,
Right.
or doing a short sale. The bank would actually get a little bit more money. It would help your credit. It would take off some of the liability, and also it would help it with the neighbors too. A lot of people don't think about that right away. If you're friendly with your neighbors, you don't want to see their home values going down.
Right.
A short sale will help that as well.
Right. Do you ever see maintenance issues, like people not able to afford maintaining the home, resulting in short sales as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of times people will stop maintaining the property just because they can't afford it.
Right.
And maybe they stop paying their mortgage as well because of that.
Right.
But there'll be water damages and
So your value is getting eroded and your principal balance keeps going up.
Exactly. And so when we list it as a short sale, we list it as a sold as is property. We try to make it so that way the homeowner is doesn't need to have any out of pocket expenses, because if you're going into a short sale, most likely there's a reason for that. And usually, you don't have the money to spend on the property. So we're not going to ask you to spend anything.
Right. Going into general real estate, how are you seeing the market out there right now with respect to inventory?
The market's crazy. I mean, not a lot out there right now on the market. But the stuff that's going on, it's getting sold pretty quickly. You have to act fast. I just, put an offer in on a property recently, and, we went $9,000 over asking price, and it was still outbid by somebody else.
How high was the asking price?
It was 184.
So you basically bid 5% over, and you still didn't win.
Still didn't win.
And you said your buyers were pretty flexible, too, as far as closing dates and...
Exactly. We were willing to line up all our dates with the sellers when they're purchasing their new property. We would line up all the dates with what needed to fit for them. And like I said, 9,000 over, and it was still just outbid by someone else just a little bit right above us.
Wow.
Yes, I mean, the market's crazy. I've been working with this buyer for a little while, and one of the other ones we got outbid by about $30,000.
$30,000, wow.
And these are for condos. Condos are getting up there.
It seems like it's the last thing people can really afford. Prices have gone up so much.
Exactly. Prices will keep going up. Condos are a little bit cheaper still.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're going up.
Wow, that's crazy. What about best places to buy if you're trying to stretch your budget as far as purchase price in Merrimack Valley?
I mean, right now, Lowell isn't too bad. Some of the prices are starting to go up in Lowell too, with UMass Lowell taking over. So we are seeing some increases, but there are still parts of Lowell that you can still get a good property for what you can afford.
Right. It's going to be better than the surrounding areas.
It's going to be better than the surrounding areas, and there are going to be a little bit of fixer-uppers that you're going to need. And same thing with Drake. Drake isn't a bad area to purchase in right now either.
Right. So if you're willing to go a little further off the highways, you can save a little money, basically?
Yeah, a little further away from the high commuter traffic and stuff like that. You can kind of save a little bit more money.
Right. As far as the economy, I mean, I don't know what you're seeing on the buying and selling side of things, but with rates we've seen relatively stable, but it seems like the better the economy does, the more buyers you have out there. You already have a reduced inventory. It just seems like everything's kind of fallen into place for it to just keep getting worse every year. Are you seeing more or less the same?
I mean, it's it's definitely a seller's market right now, and if you're looking to sell, now is definitely the time to do it. And for buyers, it's hard to buy right now, but it is a good time because I do believe the rates are going to start going up with the way the market is. And you want to buy now with the rates being low, but you do got to be careful that it is a seller's market out there, and they're getting top money for their property.
Right. Now, traditionally, this time of year, we're about to go into the fall in the next month or so. Do you see things start to pick up on the listing side of things now, towards the end of the summer? Or?
I think you'll start seeing some stuff now towards the end of the summer, especially now that everyone's going back to school. So the people that are looking to sell, I think will start selling now that there are vacations and things are starting to quiet down for them. They'll start looking to sell.
Okay, good. I just want to give out some information on you again. It's Steve Giuffre with Lair Realty Partners in Dracut, serving the Merrimack Valley and all surrounding areas. You can reach Steve anytime at 978-942-3496. Again, it's 978-942-3496. Steve works with buyers and sellers, and he specializes in foreclosure prevention and working with homeowners facing foreclosure. Steve, I want to thank you for joining us today. It was great having you in.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after these messages.